issues of the day, and I have with me as my panelists the Leader of the Opposition, the Leader of the United Workers' Party and Parliamentary Representative for Micoud South, the Honourable Alan Chastanet. We also have Senator Dominic Fedee, who is the Deputy Political Leader of the United Workers' Party, and Mrs. Nancy Charles, the Mobilization Officer. And today we are going to look at a number of subjects that have been in the news, but unfortunately, instead of going away, as time goes by, there are more and more questions being asked. Ladies, gentlemen, good evening and welcome.
Great to be here.
I want to say a special good evening to our viewers all around St. Lucia and our viewers in the diaspora. Ladies and gentlemen, scandals, scandals, scandals. We started off with what now seemed to pale in comparison to what's going on today. We started with the banana scandal that included Honorable Richard Frederick. We heard about the GPH scandal that included not just the Prime Minister, but also people like ministers such as Emma Hippolyte, Stephenson King, who is the minister responsible for ports. We are now dealing with the halls of justice, and what an injustice in terms of the kinds of money that I'm hearing that is being funneled to foreigners, foreign companies, and again, the Prime Minister, as the Minister of National Security and Minister of Justice, is at the head of this. And of course, what seemed to be the hottest issue of them all, St. Lucia's CIP. I am being told that I should not say that our CIP is in court. Ladies and gentlemen, our CIP is on trial in the US court. Our CEO for the CIP, Mr. McLeod Emmanuel, was named as a defendant in a case brought against the CIP programs in St. Kitts and St. Lucia. May I remind you, St. Lucians, that Mr. McLeod Emmanuel was not brought there in his personal capacity. He was not brought there to answer to and talk about his personal business, but he was brought there in his capacity as the CEO of St. Lucia CIP. So there are serious allegations being made there of illegalities and corruption. Now, if there is any negative outcome in this case here, it will directly impact our CIP program. Now, I don't want to be personal, but I am very concerned about that case because quite apart from the implications it has for the image of our country, the reputation of our government, and for the integrity of our CIP program, I am concerned about my passport. I am concerned as a holder of a St. Lucian passport that I may end up being denied visa access to countries that I'm used to accessing at will, namely the United States of America, the United Kingdom, and the rest of the European Union. Now, you will tell me, and it is true that I have no business with the European Union, but let us not forget, Martinique is part of the EU, a place we go to do business, to work, to visit family, and of course, for medical attention. So there are serious direct implications for us, quite apart from what is happening to our country as a whole. So gentlemen, ladies, let us start off, and I won't even go into bananas and all this thing, although I suspect it may be tied up into all that GPH business, and as time unfolds, we will see where it is going to. But I would want to start with the GPH saga. More and more we are hearing more disturbing news, more information that suggests that something is untoward and that our government has literally sold out on us. If I may start with you, political leader, what is the latest development? Have we gotten any clarification from our government as that would give me comfort as to what exactly is happening? Because the disturbing figures that have not been debunked, have not been denied, is very troubling and has serious implications for St. Lucia down the road. $40 million in exchange for over $400 million, and a foreign entity will have control of our port. And I emphasize that our port is one of our greatest treasures, our biggest asset in terms of revenue, guaranteed revenue for our country. We have put that in the hands of foreigners for the next 30 years with the possibility of renewing it for another 10 years to make it 40 years long, where that aspect of our patrimony will be out of our hands. And to make matters worse, even if, I'm hoping I'm wrong on that one, but even if a UWP government, with all its plans for home porting, building a cruise ship terminal in Beaufort were to come, and I think that's a great idea, were to get back in office, I wonder whether they'll be able to go ahead with that plan, given the fact that part of the agreement is that GPH is being guaranteed that St. Lucia will not develop the Beaufort port. Gentlemen, these are all serious claims. I would like to start off with you, political leader of the opposition. Please speak to our listeners.
Thank you, Mr. Montoute. In the last 2 weeks, we have now confirmed by documentation that we have received, obtained, that the deal is even more egregious, it's even worse than what we had originally imagined it was. So, the current head tax that cruise ships pay to St. Lucia is $6.50 US, of which $1.50 US goes towards solid waste. I now understand that the agreement has allowed GPH to increase the head tax to $12 US.
Okay, so when you say head tax, you're talking about every passenger, cruise ship passenger who comes to St. Lucia pays $6.50.
Correct.
To us.
Correct. And remember, we're saying that over the next 30 years, and GPH said it themselves, they're expecting that they will have in excess of 1 million passengers a year. So in 2019, we were up to, I think it was 800,000 passengers. So 1 million is not that much more. And St. Lucia was one of the leading destinations. So when I hear the Prime Minister say, well, we were losing market share, that's quite contrary. In fact, St. Lucia had been gaining market share against everyone else. I mean, who's ever heard of the number of calls going into St. Vincent that St. Vincent got over the last year? So there's something else at play. But they've now agreed to allow GPH to increase the tax to $12. I had said that we had already negotiated with the cruise industry during COVID that we were going to be able to increase the tax to $12. So I want to make that point because GPH are not the ones who brought that $12 to the table. Whether GPH was involved or not, it would have gone to $12 and maybe even more, depending on how things were going. And the split now that we're seeing in the agreement is that GPH gets $11 and the government gets $1. So it means on 1 million passengers, GPH would be making $11 million US a year, and the government of St. Lucia would be getting $1 million US a year. And after 6 years, they could increase, the government will increase it to $1.50. But that's not to say that GPH in 6 years' time might not increase the head tax to higher than $12. Okay, there's nothing in the contract that seems to suggest that they're restricted from being able to do that. And I think that in order to really understand and appreciate how egregious this is, if the numbers don't scare you already, is to ask the question, why? What is it that GPH is going to do that could not have been done by SLASCO? So the proposal is two things. One, that they're going to extend the North Wharf, like we did at Point Seraphim, remember the dolphins that we put there?
Yeah.
In order to allow a bigger class of ship to come in. So they want to be able to bring in what's called the Oasis class of ships. Oasis class brings in almost 6,500 passengers, another 2,000 crew, so 8,000 people, 8,500 people on one ship. SLASCO did it for Point Seraphim. Why wouldn't SLASCO be able to not do it for the North Wharf? The same ballast Needham that came in could be rehired to do the same thing under SLASCO. We hear that they're going to expand the Vendors Arcade. Are you telling me that we need GPH to come in to fix up the vendor's arcade for us? Invest St. Lucia built Point Seraphim. We were doing the TV villages. What is it that GPH can do on the vendor's arcade that no other entity in St. Lucia could have done? Then we hear that they're going to fix up Bananas. That was our plan. The plan was that the passengers that get off the ship at Point Seraphim, that are going to go on tour to the south end of the island, instead of the taxi drivers picking them up at Point Seraphim, driving out and going down past Sans Souci, coming into the Castries Market, going down Jeremy Street, and then connecting all the way up to Bananas, that they were going to be on a little boat ferry, and it would have taken them to Bananas. Okay? There would have been shops and cleaned up that Bananas area, and a parking lot for the taxi drivers. So the passengers would have gone through the shops, into the taxis, and then straight down the Millennium Highway. So it means that all the congestion that takes place in Castries on a daily basis would have been alleviated, right? And it would have now created a new vending area. Was that difficult to build a car park and to put some stalls in that area and to have a little dock for a ferry? That's something that SLASPA or any of the other entities in St. Lucia could not do. It's ridiculous, right? The second thing that now is supposed to be happening, so did the government of St. Lucia have the ability to increase the tax by themselves? The answer is yes, because it's 3 companies that you would have to negotiate with. Could SLASPA build a port? Yes. Could Invest St. Lucia or multiple of entities that we have fix up the vending stalls? The answer is yes. Soufriere to fix up the vending stalls in Soufriere. Look at the work that we already did in Soufriere. So nothing would have prohibited it. So for all those things now, what are you doing? You don't go to tender. So Puerto Rico went to tender, Bahamas went to tender, all these entities go to tender. In St. Lucia, we did it. They just negotiated directly with GPH, gave GPH a contract for 30 years with an extension of 10 more years. They've given GPH all the money. So I'm saying to you, why didn't the government of St. Lucia not maintain the 650?
Okay, well, let me ask this question here. I am one who buys into the saying that what one has done, one can do. And all of what you mentioned there, expanding the port and building this and that, SLASPA has done that in the past. Maybe on a slightly bigger scale than what it means, and they could have done it. But perhaps, I'm just asking, so would they have been able to finance because perhaps that's why, I'm looking for a reason. I'm looking for a good reason why GPH was brought into the picture. So, is it that SLASPA could not have been able to find financing and GPH was...
So that's very interesting. In the case of GPH would not have been able to get the financing internationally because their balance sheet was very weak. So in fact, doing this deal with St. Lucia has strengthened GPH's balance sheet. Because GPH now can go, because it's a public company, and say that they're expecting 1 million passengers. They're now going to be getting $11 million US a year, plus they're getting all the monies from the concessions. All the vendors have to pay them, the taxi drivers have to pay them, anybody who's going to go to Point Seraphim, anybody who's going to go to the vendors market, anybody who's going to go to Bananas, anybody who's going to be using Soufriere, all have to go through GPH.
Help me understand this. You are saying, apart from the head tax, which is $12,
yes.
we're only going to get $1 from it.
Yes.
GPH is getting $11 from the head tax.
Yes.
In addition, US. In addition to this, you mean the concessionaires and the taxi, all those services is not coming to us?
No. And it's worse than that. And I think that Guy Joseph brought it up. Security at the port.
Right.
And let's take one that's very sensitive, water. So Wasco has been selling water to the cruise lines at a higher price than what they sell water to locally. Okay? In fact, even more than what they pay at the hotels. So now the GPH is going to buy the water from Wasco. We don't know what the rate. And then turn around and resell it to the cruise lines.
And make the profit.
And there's no regulations on that. And that's the part here. All of this money is being channeled through a third party. That once the money goes into GPH's hands, GPH is free to use the money anywhere. They have no limitation on where they can put the profit. So if they want to invest the money in Antigua, if they want to invest the money somewhere else, they can. If they want to invest the money in Europe, because it's GPH's money. GPH is not obligated in any way as to how they procure their services. Does it mean that GPH has to go out to tender? Did they put a provision that say that any work that is going to be done in St. Lucia, it has to be tendered here in St. Lucia and only St. Lucian companies qualify? I've not seen any conditions to those kinds of things.
So there are two things here. I mean, quite apart from the fact that there are local agencies here, like you mentioned, Wasco, who can do well with that money, because we know they're struggling. You have a situation where, had government had some involvement in running of the pot. I mean, a parliamentary representative would come and negotiate with government and make a case for the taxi drivers, for the concessionaires, the vendors, and so on. Now, it is all up to a private foreign individual to determine how that is done.
Correct. And remember, there is no legislative requirement for any loyalty.
Right.
I want to explain that. So if they're getting the concession from the government and the people of St. Lucia, the loyalty should be the government and people of St. Lucia.
Right.
But I'm not understanding or seeing anything in which those obligations are being passed on to GPH, meaning that GPH is loyal to whoever they want to be loyal to. So I can only ask the question, right? Were they told to hire Thaddeus Antoine as their lawyer? Or did they say, well, we're negotiating with the government, we know that Thaddeus is a good friend of the government, right? So we're going to use Thaddeus as our lawyer. Lisa Jolie and her company to do the public relations. And so what other contracts are being issued? We see this situation where the Minister of Invest St. Lucia and Tourism is the one who presented this to Cabinet. Why? This is SLASPA. SLASPA falls under the minister. It should be the Minister of Finance who presents this deal to Cabinet. Right? And why is that interesting? Because the chairman of Invest St. Lucia is also on the Bank of St. Lucia.
Right.
Okay? And Bank of St. Lucia now is providing the loan. Was it put out to tender? Does it say that it had to be a local bank? And the loan was put out to tender. What are the terms of the loan? What's the security that's being put up? I'm saying to you that when I listen to the Prime Minister speak and understanding finance, when the Prime Minister now says that the port was leased and not sold, so what it tells me is that an emphyteutic lease was put together, meaning a lease that cannot be broken, to give GPH this lease, and they can take that lease and use it as collateral with the bank. And I'm absolutely positive that the amount for that lease is $1. Okay? But it's a lease. So the same thing that was done with DSH, where the government owned land. The gentleman agreed to build a horse racing track. So we leased him the land for 99 years so that he could use that as collateral for the bank. But we were not selling the land. And the transactional amount from a legal perspective is you lease it for $1. Exactly what just took place with the Halls of Justice.
Yeah.
The land in town that's being transferred into the name of a company on the basis of a lease is being leased for $1. Okay? So I believe that that's what has happened. So you ask a question. If SLASPA already owned the land, you don't think that SLASPA could have gone to the Bank of St. Lucia because it had not gone internationally? So the answer to your question on the financing is yes. Who lent the money to do the first extension? CDB. Yeah. We could have gone to CDB. Who else could you have gone to? You could have gone to the economic fund that we have and say to the economic fund, we want to borrow the money. The same way that they were able to go and get NLE to borrow $80 million. You're telling me that for the port? Mm-hmm. So none of these things require the intervention of any. All these things could be done on the outside. Now, I've made this point, and I'll keep repeating the point. This gives us an opportunity to understand the difference between two visions. United Workers' Party's vision for Castries was to improve the quality of the cruise ship experience in Castries, not to improve the quantity. Why? We already see the congestion on the highways. We see the congestion on the beaches. Okay? And there is no more opportunities to create any new attractions. Whereas if you put the expansion of the port into View Fort, you get the benefit of a home port. That's a new business that didn't exist before, because we cannot compete against Barbados, we cannot compete against Antigua when it comes to home porting in this region, or even Martinique. Right? So how do we compete? By having a port that's closer to our international. That means that we're going to get the airport tax on those passengers. But more importantly, we thought that there was more opportunity to expand tours in the south than there is in the north. And there's less congestion. So if you take Sandy Beach, the goal was not to build any hotels on Sandy Beach, but to improve the recreational facilities, both for the people in the south, but also now for cruise ship passengers who will be coming in port, that they have a place to go, just like VG Beach. You now have an opportunity for tours in Labrie, tours in Choiseul, tours in the two Micous, and all the way down to Dennery. So the taxi drivers who have only been able to get passengers to bring them to the north from the airport, and even that business is being diluted because of the cost. Now those taxi drivers would have had a new form of income, and you would have kept money in the south, you would have created jobs in the south. That's a fundamental difference. And in the case of Castries, what we wanted to do is to make Castries into a conference and incentive business. Let me explain to you. George Charles Airport is there. So you have Gantas on the other side. You have the new Marriott Courtyard going in. The goal was to take the container port and move it to cul-de-sac. And where the container port is to build a proper convention and cultural center, as well as another hotel. You know, where the fast ferries are coming in right now. Expand Ganters. So when passengers now fly in, they can go to their conference hotel in Castries. So if you have over 400 rooms in the Castries Basin, what is going on at Rodney Bay at night would now start happening in Castries. So you're bringing life back to Castries. You're bringing people to want to live back into Castries. And part of that was Constitution Park. Break down the Princery, break down the Parliament, and break down the old courthouse. Now there's no argument. Right? Because there was an argument before that we should not have done it. Now there's no argument.
We're all on the same page.
All on the same page. The difference is United Workers' Party, and coming from the vision plan of Sir John, remember the Quadrant Economic Plan, was not to build anything there. To keep it as an open space. Improve the quality of people's experience. What we were doing in fixing up the Castries market, and I want to thank the Minister for that. So it came in 3 phases. Phase 1 was to fix up the vendors in the back, put proper washroom facilities, raise the platform, put them under a cover, and asphalt that whole back area. It was nasty. Second phase is what's taking place right now, which they call the box park, to put more shops. So move the agricultural shop that they had there, right? The marketing, and move it out, and now put more shops there. And then the third part was to fix up the main building and to improve the quality of that experience. And I said we were going to make it the #1 tour in St. Lucia. When you come at the Castries Market and you look into town, the first building you were supposed to see is the cathedral. What does this government want to do now? The government wants to now and take the Daher Mall. Because I want solutions to be able to visualize it. Pass by the Daher Mall, pick up that building, add 1 more story to it, 1 more floor, and put it in Constitution Mall. And then build a bridge, a walkover, to the old Ministry of Education. Right? So you're going to completely crowd out the church. And I want to say, because Nancy is the person who reminded me, the church and the presbytery are both historical buildings. These are buildings that are registered by the National Trust. Unlike the custody suites, it was never registered as a historical building. These buildings are. So not only are you going to build a building that is going to create a shadow, a physical shadow over them, because there's no building is supposed to be higher than the cathedral. For a reason. Because that's supposed to be your beacon. Yes? But more importantly, to build a building of that size, the piling that's going to take place, I don't care what Mr. Peters said, there has to be a risk to the church and the presbytery, plus the old CDC buildings. Are we prepared to have historical buildings be threatened in that way? So the plan that this government has, one, why are they putting GPH in? GPH is not bringing anything. Why are they allowing GPH to collect all the money? As I said, if in fact the government of St. Lucia kept the 650 and GPH says, okay, we want to do this plan to build a new Oasis class berth, go ahead. We'll give you the extra money. Right? But why would we give them all of the money? But there's a pattern of behavior, and we'll discuss it on the show today.
Yeah.
That by putting the money into GPH's hands, all of it, it now takes away the constraint by the government as to how that money is going to be spent. And therefore you must ask the question, why? And then when you ask the question, why, does it make sense? Everybody's going to tell you no. So the next question you have to, who benefited?
Exactly.
Okay? And it's in answering who benefited, in following the money, that we then start understanding what is going on. But you've taken now 440 million US dollars that should have been going into the coffers of SASPA to develop all the ports in Castries, to have moved the container port to cul-de-sac, to enhance Castries for everybody to be able to benefit, and instead of taking that money now and put it in the hands of a third party, and the decisions they've already made, the choice of lawyer, who's doing their PR, okay, the persons they gave jobs to. I must ask the question.
You don't have to imagine who's benefiting and who will benefit.
No, because I mean the general manager is the brother of the chairman of the thing. Why? What are you doing? Okay, and it has to. We have to ask those questions. And the fact that the government is not ready to give us those answers, and that we continue to find those answers elsewhere, is what is now very troubling that we're seeing.
So you see all the projection that was being done when the St. Lucia Labour Party was in opposition. It was just indirectly telling us what they had in mind and what they planned to. Remember the FFF? So you just mentioned some of the families and friends. GPH is a foreigner. And that is where the FFF comes in. So if you want to make it a difficult task of imagining who's benefiting, I think anybody, even if you are blind, you can see. Because they're not stupid. They know what they're doing. And to tell me that you're going to go into those kinds of arrangements, those kinds of deals, yes, the question has to be benefiting. I assure you, you are not the ones benefiting, you are losing. So who are they really putting first? FFF. I understand now what you are meant by FFF. The people that you are putting first. Your friends, your family. Because among the names you mentioned, there are people who are family to government ministers, the friends of the family of the government ministers, and of course, it's obvious who the foreigners are. In this case, it is GPH. Do you want to comment at all?
Yeah. So for me, the thing that a political leader did a great job in outlining comprehensively, but the thing that really irks me about the GPH deal is the missed opportunity for home porting in the south. You have this international airport, a major development plan, and that would have brought in the opportunity to expand Vieux-Fort as a hub for hotels as well. So not just do you have the cruise side of it, but then you also have the cruise port being a stimulus for other hotel developments to see that there's a business. As you see people, they cruise and they stay 2-3 nights, a couple of nights after or before the cruising. Then the opportunity for provisioning, because cruise ships do all of their supplies in the home port. So just imagine what would have happened to your farming industry in Vieux-Fort North, for example, Nancy, where you're from. Just think of how many fruits and veg and all the stuff that we could have produced. And so the agriculture sector would have benefited significantly because we would have had the cruise ships provisioning in St. Lucia by the development of a home port. So the government they have really missed a great opportunity, in addition to squandering the revenues of SLASPA and the country. They've given away a monopoly. The government is the only entity that runs a port. How difficult is that to do?
So I just have to add here, because you outlined some of the economic benefits to our country. But let's not forget, direct benefits would accrue to Viewport.
Correct.
A part of our country that is in dire need of that kind of situation, given what exists there today and what is going on there now.
Correct.
I'm sure those jobs that will be created will benefit the people of Viewport greatly and will go a long way in alleviating some of the criminal activity that is taking place there right now.
But just imagine 6,000 people comes in a ship, okay? And you're asked as a farmer to provide food for the entire cruise.
Every week.
It's not even possible.
Every week?
Yeah, every week. Yeah? But it's not even possible for us to provide the capacity. Just imagine there were 5 ships that you had to provide for every week. 30,000 people that you had to provide all of the stuff that they require. So this is big. This is a big opportunity that the government has squandered. Just think of the manufacturing sector.
Yeah, but you're right in that our farmers perhaps will not be able to provide all of the food. But remember the plan of the former United Overstock Party administration to focus
on 7 crops.
On specific crops, 7 crops. The farmers could come together and provide all of those to the ships.
Lettuce, tomato, cucumbers.
That's right.
Yeah.
And you know the difference that will make in our local economy and the boost that will give to our agricultural industry.
Yeah, food processors. I mean, it just created a whole new opportunity for the agriculture, manufacturing, and processing. Your distribution companies would have taken off in Viewport because what we couldn't supply, then they would have needed to set up warehouses and employ more people and import more. So, and to have that service, so Viewport could have really been closer to living up to its true potential. A deep water harbor, international airport, and some of the most strategic lands in the country.
And an international hospital.
And an international hospital. So it really, for me, that irks me. Spider, for me, when I look at the numbers, and you think of 11 US dollars by 1 million people, it means that GPH could pay this off in 5 years. Think the amount of revenues that they're going to collect. They can pay this off in 5 years, and they have an additional 35 years to go, where all of the money that they receive goes straight to their pocket. I mean, it is just ridiculous.
I don't want to sound biblical, but through lack of vision on the part of our government, Viewport is perishing.
Yeah.
And it is only vision that will provide the kinds of plans that I'm hearing there right now. And Nancy, I want to bring you in, and perhaps we can do a little Creole as well.
Sure.
You know, just because you're from the South, you have first-hand knowledge and you live what is going on in the South. What does all of that mean to the average person in the South?
I think Spider, and maybe I do want to say a little bit in Creole as well, because we have a huge Creole audience. So, moi, je vais vous souhaiter que tout le monde qui a écouté nous, cette ici, la Niger Vieux-Fort, la Niger Slawé, la Niger Cachery, tout partout. Et nous avons choisi cette ici qui est l'autre pays qui a écouté nous, il n'y a pas de power Creole tout. So, also, nous avons parlé about the GPH, la gouvernement en tout. Expire, nous avons parlé about janvier fort, janvier court, janvier oui. Because nous tout à sous pays, nous avons espéré pour ça, qui Premier ministre Alan Chastanet était là. Il était fait un deal pour nous aller en port Vieux-Fort. C'est gros bâtiment qui a mené tout touristes, cacheries là, nous avons tous ces gens qui ont venu Vieux-Fort. Et puis aujourd'hui, nous avons le gouvernement signé un agreement et puis GPH. Et nous avons dit ça en chai, mon camarade, ça se passe.
Mais avant d'aller plus loin,
qu'est-ce que ça mine?
Expliquez par ce tribunal à côté de nous, qui nous dit GPH?
Well, GPH, nous c'est Global Ports Holding. C'est une compagnie, nous savons qu'il a allé tout partout en Caraïbes et qu'il a développé port. Mais ça, il a fait c'est le gouvernement, ces pays, ça a un contrat pour ça développer port. Ça qui fait dans cette liste, là, il a vu cette liste, il a négocié et puis Alan Chastanet, le gouvernement, pour ça développer port cacheries. Mais Alan Chastanet a une plus grande vision dans cette liste. Il dit, cacheries a un port. Un chai moun ka vini cacheries, un chai touriste ka vini cacheries. On fait un bail Vieux-Fort plutôt. So let's say for hani a doc la, changer la nan doc, et ka ba ken yon tani, doc sa a te fait spider, ou te nan chay moun ka travay la. Tout se moun sa a pa travay. La ni Sandy Beach la, la ni airport la, l'hôpital la hala. So il plieze pour ça, en développer sous pays à tout aussi. Nous n'avons pas janvier fort, nous comme moi, spider, nous avons monté des 5 cas sur travail tous les jours. Là, nous avons janvier fort, quand nous avons monté la travail, il faut côté. So, vi jeune à l'enchasse, c'était un développé porte la vie fort. So, là, ça, toutes ces choses, ça reste vie fort, ça travaille vie fort. Pharmacie qui a fait laiti, il a fait cocon, il a fait moulon. Banane, mi, bail, comme ça, nous avons vendu, bail, c'est un bâtiment, ça. Poisson, yes, a lot of fish as well. So, that vision is lost, Spider, because we now have signed an agreement with GPH to develop port catcheries, and we are understanding part of that agreement is that there can be no other port developments in the country within the next 30 to 40 years. And so what it means that even if United Workers' Party wins the election, and Alan Chastanet would want to renegotiate to develop the port in Vieux-Fort, that clause or that restriction in that contract is going to be very difficult for us to develop the port in Vieux-Fort. And I want people in Vieux-Fort especially, Vieux-Fort North, Vieux-Fort South, Labrie, Auger, Miko, Dennery, all of us from that area, as far as Choiseul, to understand the difficulties and the challenges. So, là où mon gouvernement Spider qui dit, il a mis mon avant, et qui a signé un agreement qui a dit, pour 40 années, nous pas ça fait rien en les deux claviers fort là.
Bon, je ne vais pas mettre politique en discussion, mais Vieux-Fort, Labrie, Vieux-Fort Nord, c'est place qui a supporté le partisan gouvernement.
Et tu n'as pas jamais voté un partisan flamand.
Avec pour faire ces gens là, pour signer un agreement avec l'étranger, pour faire assurer la panne de développement en place en cette qui besoin de développement si possible. Moi, je veux parler aussi à ce situation. Il y a un agreement aussi. Qui ça, GPH a fait cette système? Quand nous avons d'accord pour Bayol, là, pour 30 années, avec la possibilité pour l'autre 10 ans, pour faire 40 années. Avec, nous savons, ça c'est un côté de cette café là. Parce que quand on est sorti, bagaille quand on est sorti, soleil est venu pour la nous, ça c'est côté de l'argent à faire. So, qui manière nous avons plus meilleur pour un pays? Est-ce qu'il y a nous faire plus l'argent à présent parce que nous baillons agrément ça là? Qui manière nous avons réussi en agrément ça là?
Well, Spider, let me regarder la pièce bénéfice ça. Because ça,
political... Non, c'est la obligation de bénéfice. En monde qui a bénéfice.
Well, nous avons regardé, nous défrichons, nous avons regardé qui est-ce qui a bénéfice. Mais manier de ces pays, cette ici, et bien peuple cette ici qui a bénéfice. Parce que ça qui fait là, tout touriste, chaque touriste qui vient cette ici et qui va trouver un lawa de cash, il a payé $6 et des chelins US, ça pas ici. C'est US pour chaque monde. Bon, nous savons que nous avons joindre 1 million de passagers qui ont entré dans le pays tout de suite. Et puis, l'agreement, c'est que le gouvernement, c'est ici, even à Alan Chastanet, a négocié pour nous faire ça. Puis, c'est mon ça, plutôt 650, il a payé $12. Il a payé wholesale pour $12.
US.
$12 US. So, l'argent, ça a payé wholesale now. So, les ces passagers, ça a venu. Plutôt, c'est slash spot qui te gagne $12 ça par passager. Actuellement, l'argent ça a le GPS rider. Et pour qui ça? GPH dit qu'il y a une expansion dans l'époque là, il y a manger casseries, pas vivre encore casseries. Et ça a coûté $40 millions. Mais là, $12 ça par passager et 1 million de passagers tous les années. Pour l'autre 40 l'année, c'est $400 millions ou ça. Un haut 400 millions de dollars qui GPS a fait. Et tout ça c'est US, nous avons la vote, pas même ici. Ici ça a $1 million. So, gouvernement c'est ici, en $12 ça a joué $1.
So, il y a un haut 400
millions de dollars.
Et nous avons fait 40 000.
Nous avons fait 40. Bon, ou quoi ça c'est un deal qui a bénéficié? Pièce dans le pays, c'est GPS, because ma comprendre qui m'a dit c'est moun sa ka investir $40 million. Mais en l'investissement yo, nous ka ba yo un agreement, pas nous pas faire ça. Philippe JP ba yo un agreement, côté yo ça fait en haut $400 million en les $40 million. Moi pas comprendre marché la spider, c'est pour ça moi donc massa qui est qu'à bénéfice parce que c'est pas nous.
Si slash pas. C'est ça fait ça.
Mais oui, parce que regardez tout ça qui a fait cette ici un développement point. Cette ici c'est slash pour Invest Solution. Point Seraphine c'est Invest Solution qui fait et slash pour. La place Carinal c'est slash pour qui fait. Tout port development community actuellement c'est slash pour qui fait. Slash pour là you investir là, you aller Caribbean Development Bank. So si nous tenons pour expand, on veut dire $40 million expansion slash pour ça fait sous fouiller, nous tout ça qui a fait c'est là. Vendors arcade. Nous briser GPH pour venir faire vendors arcade, ben non, parce que ça fait toutes ces bagailles ça là.
Avec you fait profit hein.
C'est ici. Oh yes.
Mais moi nous l'homme souffrir là, nous pas en parler de ça.
Oui, nous pas vérifier là.
Si vous avez avec négociation, nous voir ça pour ça.
C'est un autre encore spider because GPH qui a fait développement souffrir aussi. C'est pas qu'à suivre tout seul ou ça. Yo mené GPH juste souffrir actuellement qui vont agency à souffrir qui était qu'à collecter toute la Souffrir Foundation qui était qu'à collecter ça là ça actuellement c'est pas yo qu'à collecter yo spider GPH qui a collecté encore
so on va accepter ça nous qu'à quitter le gouvernement nous faire nous garder priorité ça non à moi-même Nancy nous arriver côté cette décennie pour de route avec fait gouvernement pour prendre c'est pas ça
assez
avec nous pas qu'à accepter quand c'est ça
it's not acceptable I think St. Lucians get that and when I go through Viewfort, when I go in the south, when I go by the market, when I go in the supermarket, people continue to stop me spider every day and ask me more information about this. And some people are asking me, are you sure? Is this true? Is this for real? Because people just cannot believe that type of information we're giving to say an investment of $40 million and these people stand to make over $400 million in the next 30 to 40 years. It can't be real.
And for you to give me such a deal, you must have some interest or benefit.
Of course.
And so we ask ourselves, who is benefiting? We know for sure it is not solutions. Who are the ones benefiting? Now, gentlemen, lady, we have discussed GPH at length in this segment. Before we end the segment, there's another matter I want to bring up. Now, everything you have said there indicates that the GPH deal is an injustice. It's an illusion. Talking about injustice, there is talk of the commencement of construction of halls of justice in St. Lucia. Another injustice, this is what I'm hearing. Gentlemen, any of you, perhaps you, political leader, I heard you make some pronouncements of late. Explain to St. Lucians, and I'm hoping you're coming with better news than what I've been hearing.
They give you a heart attack.
Yeah, so, again, Spider, thank you. And sadly for us, the information that we're obtaining on this deal is coming from the Trinidad Guardian. So you remember, there was a groundbreaking ceremony. We didn't get any details. The first article that came out from the Guardian suggested that the building was 33,000 square feet. They've now said, no, that's 33,000 square foot footprint. So it's 4 floors. And I want us to understand the size of building we're talking about. That's exactly the same size as the Daher Mall, but with 4 floors. That's what 120,000 square feet looks like. But even with it at 120,000 square feet, the construction cost now of the building, which is $143 million for the construction, comes in at $1,100 a square foot, which is almost, well, not almost, it is more than twice the price of what traditional buildings have cost. Historically, buildings have cost here around $500 a square foot. This one is going to cost $1,100 a square foot. We kept on asking the question, what's the rent? Because they kept on focusing, oh, you're going to get the building for $1, right? As if solutions, the government's not spending a cent, it's not going to their debt, right? You're going to get the building back for $1. Really? So a man is going to come and spend $143 million to build a building, and it's only going to cost the people of St. Lucia $1? That's the nonsense, that's the smoke and mirrors that this government continues wants to peddle to the people of St. Lucia. So now you break down the truth. The $143 million is just the cost of building the building. To furnish the building and to pay for the financing costs during the construction is another $21 million. So it means the cost of the building is really $163 million for the building. So we kept on saying, okay, so how much is the rent going to be? But you cannot answer that question until you know, because the first article in The Guardian said they had not finalized the financing cost. So again, what's the financing cost? So somebody is going to pay the contractor the $163 million to build the building and to furnish the building, yes? And then somebody has to finance it for the 12 years. Now that role would normally be what NIC does. So all the bolt agreements, or most of the bolt agreements we've had in the past, have been through the NIC. So it means that NIPRO would own the building, NIC would provide the financing. So we're now finding out through the article in The Guardian that the financing is going to be $130 million for the 12 years. That's $130 million that should have gone to NIC, and instead is going to go to Republic Bank.
Well, I think directly to our pensions is what it is.
If NIC had made the money, then the money would have gone to now continue to paying pensions. So remember when they made a big deal about Cabot, the fact is that NIC was lending the money and got the land as collateral.
Right.
In this particular case, they're not lending, they're not borrowing the money through NIC, they're borrowing the money through somebody else. Because it could have easily assigned the land to NIC and to NIPRO. There was no reason not to do that. And maybe NIC would have given you even better terms, because NIC would have been an ability to give you a loan for a longer period of time. But here's now where the truth comes out. Government, the Ministry of Justice, which is the Prime Minister's office now, is going to have to pay a rent of $16 a square foot.
Wow.
Per month.
Wow.
$16 a square.
$16 a square foot. Now let's put that in perspective.
Let's put it in perspective.
Ernest Hilaire said that the most expensive rent that we have in St. Lucia was a diamond. $4 a square foot. This is going to be 4 times higher. I know that when I was Prime Minister and Minister of Finance and the Minister of Public Affairs, you used to be the Minister of Public Affairs. The highest rent that we were paying was $7.50. And that was for space that included the FF&E, meaning all the furnishings, right? And we were paying that for a 5-year period of time, maximum. In this particular case, we're going to pay $16 for 12 years. So it's not about $1. And the question becomes, why? Why would you do it through these guys?
You're already getting me tired with those stories of giving money to foreigners. I mean, okay, you bypass the NIC, you get a foreign company that is going through a foreign bank, and I'm waiting for you to tell me what we are getting in return. You're telling me we are paying $16, whereas $16 square foot for rent, whereas we have an option. Because I am aware that at Diamond there's an option to use the upper floors at $4 a square foot.
So there's 78,000 square feet of space that the government is allowed to languish at the Diamond Mall.
Right.
But they're everywhere in Castries, going and outstrip commercial buildings which were operating as different businesses. In the case of one of the businesses, it was formerly a very popular store in St. Lucia. And what they're doing, Spider, is that they're going into those buildings instead. And you ask yourself, but if the government has this facility that's ready to go, why would the government betray that? Why would the government forgo that, abandon that?
Well, let me do what my Prime Minister has asked me to do. I'll speculate.
Yes.
They are government of deals. That is why.
Yeah.
And what's also interesting, and I know that Nancy can expand on that, is that they created a company, Themis, which the board of directors, John Peters, and the remaining of them are Trinidadians.
company.
They're going to
Yes.
lease the land to that company for $1, right, a year. The same dollar.
Yeah.
That's what the lease is for, right? Which is they could have leased that land to NIPRO. NIPRO could have been the team. It's already set up.
Yeah.
And a board of directors that we know who they are. Solutions.
Right.
Okay? And NIC has the capacity to have done the financing. And the security would be very high because it's government. Government is paying the rent. Like they do with all the other buildings that are owned by NIPRO.
Yeah.
And NIPRO does the maintenance on the buildings. So there was no need to have brought NH. NH wants to tell you, oh, they're the greatest construction company in the world and they do a better job. Well, I know the financial center building that they built, right? A lot of problems.
Yes.
The amount of times that we've had to close that office down. I'm not saying it's their fault, but it doesn't mean they're perfect, right? We have several construction companies that could have easily have done that job. If NIPRO got it, they would have put it out to bid, okay? And we could have ensured that money would have come. So for instance, when we were in opposition in 2013-14, and the financial center was being built, we were upset that government's monies were being used to bring in a Trinidadian contractor. We felt that the conditions should have...
Very good point.
Right?
Yes.
We felt that the contractor should have been local.
Yes.
And going through NIC, that should be a provision. If it's going to be taxpayers' monies and pensioners' monies that are going to be used, there should be an obligation for it to be solution. By putting it in the hands of Theus, which is a Trinidadian company, and we saw in the article, right? They're going to make sure that it's Trinidadian engineers, it's Trinidadian equipment. Right? I have nothing against Trinidad, they're being loyal to their own country. But you know, they ask the question,
Yeah.
why? And then when you ask the question why, and you cannot satisfy yourself that there's a reasonable answer, the next question you must ask yourself is, who is benefiting? Where is the money going? Where's the funds?
So that smells of ball.
But just a very quick
Corruption.
point there, Spider, about, and the political leader is absolutely right. Every government around the world, if you're going to stimulate your local construction industry, you're using local companies.
That's right.
But the thing about it, when we sat in government, I was very impressed with the ability of local construction companies to finance themselves.
Yeah.
You remember these DFCs that
Yes.
they complained? So let's say NIC was not one of the options. They also had a responsibility to go out and to mobilize the capacity of our construction companies. I mean, we had about 4 or 5 companies that had design, finance, build,
Even if they
vehicles to do
consortium
it.
and to
Yes, they could
And we
have.
didn't, and we didn't use one company.
No.
In fact, you know, Renault came out and said that under our government, right? You got more work than Fresh
Yeah,
Start,
yeah.
but the fact is that everybody got work. The difference today is Renault is getting all the work.
Only.
So we see Renault at Rhodes, we see Renault at St. Jude's Hospital, we see Renault everywhere in this country. And you have to ask yourself, what, the talent that we have in this country is only one company? But that's the purpose of having a bidding process. The moment that you take the money out of the hands of government authority, it means the legal requirement for there to be a tender and for there to be accountability disappears.
Yes.
So
and I would
putting,
like to say to that, one of the things that a government who puts their people first would do is to ensure that they build the capacity of their people by giving them the opportunity to do those things that they are outsourcing to foreign companies.
Yes, rightly so.
You must make your construction companies so good that they're going around the Caribbean to do work. You need to have 4 or 5 companies that have that capacity to do
the
work.
capacity, certainly. Well, I don't want to cut you short, gentlemen, but before the end of this session, I just want us to take 5 minutes to talk about another matter that has, been another source of many questions, that smells of scandal, smells of corruption, St. Jude's. And have we run out of time for the first segment? If we have, I will deal with that in the second segment, and of course we'll have to touch on CIP. But as we come to the end of this segment, gentlemen, let me just say that when I mention St. Jude's, okay, I'm talking about what obtains in terms of the building of the hospital, not the management of the hospital. Because I know you will tell me that animals are managing it now, because we see goats, we see cows, we see dogs actually taking over.
Sad.
You know, and so St. Jude's has become an animal farm now. And I've noticed that St. Lucians are making a joke of this, but this is serious.
It's very serious.
This is a health institution
Coming from
where animals are just freely walking in and out. I mean, can you imagine the potential risk you're placing our patients and the workers of that institution? But again, reflection of the extent to which you are a priority to the government, the extent to which our government can manage as a government, and the state of our country where we have gotten to in the space of 3 years. So I want to thank you, gentlemen, so far for the first segment. I want to ask our listeners and viewers to stay tuned. We'll be back shortly with the second segment where we'll talk about St. Jude's and the CIP program. And of course, I want to also touch on our economy as well. So we'll be back shortly. Stay tuned.
This levy will not be imposed on any food items. This means, Mr. Speaker, that the cost of food should not change because of the levy.
Prime Minister Philip J. Pierre claims that no other CARICOM countries have received funds from Saudi Arabia and that the $75 million United States loan that he has taken for St. Jude was because of his government's hard work. Here is the truth. Antigua has received $80 million US, Guyana has received $150 million US, Grenada has received $100 million US, Belize has received $77 million US, Bahamas has received $12 million US, and St. Vincent received $10 million. We can't trust Pierre.
Philip J. Pierre says that all state funds should go into the consolidated fund. Here are some examples of Philip J. Pierre's hypocrisy. As we speak, work on the rehabilitation of the Millennium Highway is ongoing. This project is financed by the Caribbean Development Bank. CDB pays the contractor for the Millennium Highway directly. The funds do not go into the consolidated fund. Philip J. Pierre also happens to be the current chairman of CDB. Why aren't the funds going into the consolidated fund if the practice is so unusual as he makes it out to be? Funds from St. Lucia's Citizenship by Investment program also do not go into the consolidated fund. In 2022, the government of St. Lucia collected a whopping $51 million US from the Citizenship by Investment program. Not 1 cent was put into the consolidated fund. What have they done with all this money? Why isn't it going into the consolidated fund? The same contractor that Philip J. Pierre is accusing of facilitating corruption was just awarded a major contract for the new air traffic control tower at Huanora International Airport, and payments will go directly to their account in Panama. In other words, this means that money is not coming into the consolidated fund. Why would a prime minister deliberately spread propaganda and misinformation regarding a practice he follows himself? Why the hypocrisy? What is Prime Minister Philip J. Pierre trying to distract you from? We can't trust Pierre.
Thank you, and welcome back, viewers, to the second segment of the Roundtable. And we have been discussing a number of issues pertaining to the people of St. Lucia and the manner in which our government has been handling and governing our country. We spoke of GPH earlier, we spoke of the halls of justice. We touched on St. Jude's, which we are going to discuss in further detail in this segment, as well as CIP. And if you're wondering what CIP is, stay tuned. Our panelists will explain to you. I've seen many things being offered, many meanings being offered for the abbreviation CIP. Criminals in power, corruption in progress, whatever. But we will find out the true meaning of CIP and what is happening with our CIP program in St. Lucia. So, at the break, ladies and gentlemen, we were talking about St. Jude's. And I don't even want to go, like I said, into the fact that animals have taken over one of our premier health facilities in this country, and how shameful this is, and how reflective it is of the type of governance we have in this country. But the most substantial discussion I want to engage in is the building and completion of the St. Jude's Hospital. We have gotten very little details, but we have seen some developments in terms of a contract being awarded. The amount has begun to unfold now as to what is going to cost St. Lucian's. Let us go there, gentlemen. Before I start with you, Nancy, let me hear, because during the week I got some information from the leader of the opposition that I would like him to share with the rest of St. Lucia as far as the cost. Political leader of the opposition.
So during the budget, the estimates have that the total amount of money that the government intends to spend, new money, this is not old money. So we've already spent $260 million between the two administrations.
Yeah.
So between Stephenson King and Dr. Anthony, they spent about $140 million, and we spent about $130 million on the new building. Right? So the government now intends to spend 265 million EC dollars on a new building. Now, it's a bit shocking because this is the same government that said that you needed some chemical and some paint and $30 million and 3 months to have moved in. So let's say, all the time had gone by, you double that, $60 million and 6 months. Here it is, 3 years has gone by. We know that work is taking place at St. Jude's. Nobody knows officially who the contractor is. Nobody knows how much money is being spent. What we do know from our own intelligence is that the only buildings that they're working on is the smaller boxes, which was the dialysis center and the rehabilitation center, the same buildings they complained that we've broken down. And also the building that was going to be used for administration and for the kitchen. Right?
When you say the boxes, you mean phase 2 of the project, right?
No. Well, not phase 2. They were going up simultaneously, and it was the same construction standard of the main building. So at the hospital has what we call outpatient services. So what you try not to do is to include those services in the building itself. So dialysis is both an inpatient service and an outpatient service. Rehabilitation is both an in-service and out. So there was a ramp that was covered that would have connected the main hospital to those two buildings.
Understood.
So those are the two buildings that the government are now, putting a new design to, but it's those buildings. And it was the building next to it that was going to be used. The ground floor was supposed to be for the kitchen, and upstairs was supposed to be the administrative room. I have no idea what the government intends to use. I do know that there has been a contractor. We've been reliably informed that contractor is Reno Gajada. We've also been reliably informed that he has over 80 foreigners, Indians, who are working there as just basic staff. These are not technicians or anything else. Literally living on the site, working on the property. So this has been, everything that this government does is a secret. Okay?
Some of the people that they went first.
Yes. So we also found out this week that the government issued a contract to Renault and a Saudi Arabian firm for $63 million US, $165 million. And I would assume that the $100 million remaining is work that has already been done by the same Renault. I have to make that assumption. So that's where the $265 million comes from. What is very disturbing is that the government again is smoke and mirrors. They put out the tender, St. Jude's, but the tender they put out was what we call a qualification tender. So it's for a contractor to show that they've had enough billing, that they have done works of the similar type and that are capable, have the capacity to build the new hospital. But it's not actually a bid on the design or the cost of the new hospital. You follow me?
Yeah, follow.
Okay. So you have to show that you're a mechanic or you have to show you're a contractor. That's what the bidding process is. No designs were issued in the contract, in the bid documents. What was issued was what it was going to look like, meaning in verbiage description, X number of square feet, X number of rooms, and it's going to be a hospital. Right? Only one company ended up qualifying. So the purpose of doing this is so that when you do go out to bid, that you've narrowed down your bidding process. So if you're not ready to go out for a construction bid, what you can do is save time by having a tender for qualified persons. So once now the designs are completed, you're now going to have those companies bid on the new construction. So do we have an example of that? The bridge in cul-de-sac. When the Japanese went out and they put out a bid for qualifications, only one company qualified. And as a result of it, they had to go back out to tender. Because in order to do a legal bidding process for the contract, you have to have a minimum of 3 tenders. Okay? So this government, apparently, after going through the qualification bid and only one company came out, turned around and decided to give that one company the contract for $63 million US.
Wow.
Up to now, you'd have thought that this government would have been out boasting to show the designs for this new hospital. I have not seen one design. We don't even know if it's going to be $63 million US. We don't know. We know nothing. What we do know is a government who promised to immediately have delivered the hospital. 3 years have gone by. They're no closer. You're now telling me we were building a brand new building. So you see, all of a sudden now, in building a brand new building in which the ground floor would have been completed, and their own estimates said $50 million US, 50 million EC dollars, and
18 months.
they said 18 months. We knew it was 6 months, but let's say even 18 months.
Yeah,
So in 18 months,
already.
and with $50 million, you would have already been in the ground floor.
Yeah.
A year and a half ago.
With 100 beds, right? We are now 3 years gone by, we've not moved in. And if you're going to tell me, let's understand what $265 million is. $265 million is the same amount of money that was spent on 2 buildings over 10 years.
Yeah.
You want to convince all of us that in less than 2 years you can spend another $265 million? Right? This whole thing is a joke, and to add insult on it is to have foreign workers doing basic labor jobs in a time when the South is as deprived as they are. So my concern is that has this government fooled the people to the extent that people have bought into that? Or is it that people have become so preoccupied with just surviving that something as egregious as this, right, nobody thinks it's a priority? But our democracy is being destroyed right before our very eyes. Because my understanding is that the Attorney General's office and the Director of Finance have signed off on giving this contract. And the question is, the new procurement guidelines that the World Bank and the IMF and CDB have required us to amend, I believe that those new laws would prohibit the government from doing this. And I'm calling on, again, civil society. I'm calling on the citizens in the South who are being economically oppressed in this country to stand up for themselves and send these Indians packing and to demand more accountability of what's taking place. But I am very concerned with this new revelation. I was terrified when I heard the government say $265 million. I think you equally were so,
Yes,
Nancy.
yes.
And the government has not been able to justify any of this going on right now.
Okay, so Nancy, tell me, has there been any reaction in the South to the fact that our government, and obviously they are foreigners, for them to work in this country, they require work permits, and the work permits are actually granted by our government. So there comes the Minister of Virginia, Albert, who is responsible for Ministry of Labour,
Only now.
right? Would she have issued work permits to workers to do menial jobs that can be done by St. Lucians in a part of St. Lucia where our people are obviously deprived and underemployed? I mean, has there been any reaction in the South?
Spider, there's a lot of reaction in the South because initially when I heard the rumors, and I'm from the South, from Grace is right next door to St. Jude's and Viewford in the vicinity, 5-10 minutes I'm already in Viewford from my home. When I heard the rumors a couple of months ago, I could not believe it. But lo and behold, then I went by the market. That's one of my favorite places these days. And then one of the vendors was showing me the house, the two buildings where these persons are living. And then somebody said to me, well, perhaps some of them are working on the Galaxy project. And so I thought it was the Galaxy project. But then one morning, I saw this black pickup with a Renault sticker on it and maybe about 10 Indian people of Indian descent sitting at the back of the truck. And then I started asking around, and then I saw this type of anger from the people, especially in Viewford. And I said to them, boy, Viewford has changed. I'm telling you, Viewford has changed, because gone are the days that these people would be actually living in the town of Viewford and taking food from the mouths of Viewfordians, and there not be some sort of a reaction that is perhaps peaceful. So I'm grateful that the reaction is peaceful, but there's a lot of anger on the ground, and every morning I think you see sometimes there's two of them, sometimes they have this little truck that brings them in. But my information as well is that these are not specialized labor. And what I do know, which is why I'm calling on Virginia Albert Poyer, I'm calling out her name this evening because I think she owes the St. Lucian public, and especially those of us from the South, an explanation as to why and how she would sign a work permit for these Indian people to come in and to work at the St. Jude's construction site. And these people are not specialized or special skilled labor that cannot be found. I mean, you've been a minister of government, and my information is that before a work permit for a foreigner can be signed, Spider, you need to satisfy yourself that there's no expertise of that nature that exists in the country, and then you would allow them to come in. So I know for sure that we have a lot of expertise, not only in the South, but all around St. Lucia. And I would like Virginia Albert Poyer to satisfy the St. Lucian public to come out and say categorically that she had done her research at the ministry and they are satisfied that there are nobody with those skills. And I certainly would be one of those curious persons by that to know what skills these people are bringing, because my information is they are just indentured laborers. They are doing millennial work, mixing concrete and plastering, etc. And we have a lot of young men, especially from the southern communities in Micoud and Monrepo, Viewford and Grace and Labrie, who needs work.
When Fresh Start was doing the building, all of the labor,
100% of the labor was from the south. And a lot of these people are currently unemployed. They're doing hand, you know what we call hand to mouth, Spider? They're doing hand to mouth. They work today, you pay them. Tomorrow there's nothing. Then 2 days later somebody call them.
Bunks and draw.
Bunks and draw, whichever one it is. That's what a lot of these skilled men are there doing. They don't have a consistent job to provide for their families, and foreigners are coming in. So it's really angering everybody right now.
Yeah, now, you know, I mean, we have to move on to a major topic that we have to discuss. But before we go on, I must ask that question. Is there anybody with a conscience in our cabinet? I mean, for these things to be going on, isn't there not one minister, one cabinet member who will say, well, enough is enough, and that's just not right, and that's unacceptable? I mean, are those people for us? And do those people care about us? And when you talk about putting people first, St. Lucians, I hope you realize by now who are the people they are putting first. Certainly not you.
So, Spider, when it's not money, because the political leaders spoke about a lot of our money and contract going to foreign contractors. When it's not money, it's people.
Yeah, and even work going to foreigners as well.
Yes.
I mean, you cannot bring in workers to a country where work is required. You have unemployed people. You know, I mean, No wonder they're talking about the rate of unemployment to justify those moves. Is that what it is?
Well, I wonder if they're getting paid the minimum wage.
Exactly. And so, but I don't know if you want to just add anything quickly.
No. Everything has been said on St. Jude's. I know you have another topic, so in the interest of time.
CIP,
Boy.
Citizen by Investment Program. That's what I thought it was.
That's not what I was thinking.
But more and more we are hearing different the definitions of that acronym. Crime in what?
Criminals in
power. I also heard
Corruption
in progress.
Mm-hmm.
And so let's talk about this program that has become so controversial, that has been shrouded not only in secrecy like every other program, but shrouded in corruption and allegations of corruption. This one has gone even further than just allegations. This one has ended up in court. Again, I'm going to start with you, political leader of the opposition. I made a statement that our CIP program is on trial. And the St. Lucia Labour Party took umbrage. They asked me to retract the statement. Well, I've already retracted it to say that not only our CIP program is on trial, my passport is also on trial. And the image of St. Lucia, the reputation of our country, and the integrity of our program is at stake. And we have a Prime Minister in the face of all of this, pretending that he does not know this and does not know that. He doesn't even know that the chairman of the program has resigned, and we have to ask ourselves why, by the way.
Yeah.
And the Prime Minister is going to say to St. Lucians that it is Mr. Emmanuel who was named as a defendant, the government is not in court, and so on. So I wonder what he wants. Must a government official, a government minister actually be named as a defendant for him to accept that this is a national crisis, a national issue? A government minister has been named in this case as a co-conspirator. Okay? Montoute West. Okay. He has been named as a co-conspirator. That's not enough. I wonder if, as the case unfolds, a government minister is named, what will be his reaction? Anyway, gentlemen, what do we know so far about this situation?
Well, exactly what you've said is that our CIP program has been put on trial. The government is doing everything to attempt to deflect the responsibility here. That's what they're doing. And to confuse people as to what is really on trial. Galaxy is the agent. Les Cam, in his role as the former CEO of CIP and St. Kitts, two former prime ministers in St. Kitts, who were also ministers responsible for the CIP, and now the CEO of CIP here in St. Lucia, and the minister of CIP is Hilaire, right? So the question is, he's been mentioned as a co-conspirator, right? Whether what has happened to the other ministers is also going to happen to them. The gentleman from MSR is particularly challenging the program as it pertained to the building of a prison in St. Kitts. So the government of St. Kitts gave the prison to Galaxy. We've now found out that Galaxy told us in a press statement 2 days ago that the government has also appointed them as a developer of infrastructure in St. Lucia. So that's the similarities. In the case of St. Kitts, a $50 million US prison was identified, and they were given 5,500 files to sell. And each file was worth $200,000 minimum. Right? So that means in excess of, they could potentially collect $1 billion US or more. Right? That's what they were supposed to collect. To do a project for $50 million. So it means for every dollar that they were collecting, for every $20 they were collecting, they were going to spend $1. That's what that means. Because 20 times the 50 million right, is $1 billion. So for every, right, $20 that Galaxy was going to, with permission of the state. So this is what his case is. He's saying the government knew from the beginning that they were not going to sell it for the $200,000, and they were underselling it in the marketplace. And by underselling it in the marketplace, it prevented him from participating in the program legally. He's now provided evidence to show that the two former prime ministers and the CEO, Les Can, knew what was going on. He's also provided evidence to show that the same thing has taken place in St. Lucia. That this new infrastructural program, that the government has given Galaxy the permission to sell 11,000 files at $100,000, which is the same billion US dollars. And remember, a file is not one passport. A file can be up to 5 or 6 passports because it's a family. So we don't even know how many passports are being sold, how many passports are being given. But we know that they've been given permission to sell over $1 billion US dollars. Nobody knows what the projects are. Nobody knows where the money is going. So the fact is, again, why do I have to ask the question, why? Because we have a donation program in which the $100,000 would have gone into the CIP board and into an economic fund. The government amended the economic fund to say that any project that Cabinet approves, they can spend the money on. So if Cabinet has chosen that roads is a priority, if they've chosen hospitals a priority, if they've chosen schools as a priority, if they've chosen housing as a priority, they're free to use the money whatever way they want to. And the fact is the money was there and they could have done it. But instead, what have they done? They've opened up a program of which they have provided no regulations to, other than name. We don't know where the money is going. We don't know if it's going into an escrow account. Galaxy said to us that in addition to the fees for the citizenship, they're also collecting all of the admin fees. So they're collecting all the money. It's going into an account that we don't know. We have no idea what it's going to be spent on. And so, where is the duplicity? Where is the
transparency?
Well, the transparency. Okay. The government wants to suggest to the people of St. Lucia that we as a party are against development. No. All we want is for the money to be transparent and accountable. If you have a program already set up that would have allowed you to spend the money whatever way you want to, why don't you just do that? And so we have a perfect storm that's taking place here.
Wow.
We have a court case. The court case now is putting at risk our visa-free access. The Europeans, the Americans, the Canadians have all spoken to say that they're very concerned of what's taking place in St. Lucia from a security perspective. The gentleman has also subpoenaed Bank of America, Wells Fargo, and Chase Manhattan. These banks provide what's called our corresponding banks. So the ability of your credit card being used to purchase things through Westtech, or to buy an airline ticket online, or for a tourist to come here and pay for services going to a restaurant and duty-free with a credit card, that is at risk. Because when those banks now come in and do an audit of the Bank of St. Lucia, the Bank of St. Kitts, the Bank of Dominic, and the Bank of Grenada, the question is, did they knowingly accept money that was not to the statutory amount? So the law says that the citizenship needs to be sold for $100,000. If it's sold for less, it means that it's money obtained by false means. Okay, it's illegal.
Wow.
Okay, and when that money then is transferred into an international bank, it becomes money laundering. So if you steal something in Martinique and you bring it to St. Lucia, not only are you going to be convicted on a crime of theft, but you're also going to be convicted on a crime of money laundering. Because you obtained an item illegally and you brought it in here. This has significant impacts. This is also going to your point, affect the reputation. So not only when this government came into office, solutions could go to Europe, which includes Martinique. I know the Prime Minister tried to convince us it really wasn't part of it, but it is part of Europe, and whatever laws are applicable to Europe also apply to Martinique and Guadeloupe. Our visa-free access to the UK, the visa waiver system we have with Canada, and even the relatively easier road to get a visa to the US, all those things might disappear, and it might become almost impossible for solutions to travel. If in fact the correspondent banks leave St. Lucia, it means that we cannot conduct financial transactions internationally. We're going to only be able to deal with cash. And then whenever you travel and you do get out, you're going to be looked at suspiciously because you're damaging the reputation of the country. No one is going to want to come and do business here. But even from a St. Lucia perspective, and that's what the point is, people outside of St. Lucia seem to be more upset than the people in St. Lucia. Our St. Lucian citizens need to be concerned that $1 billion of money is going into the hands of a third party, somebody else. The secret deal. Okay? And there's no law that says how they're supposed to spend the money. Do you know what $1 billion would do?
I can see what it can do for education, for health. I mean,
but even immediately, right, Spider? What it would have done to protect people from the inflation. Okay? What's going on right now, a large part at St. Jude's with the goats and cows, there's no money. They already said they're running out of beds at OKEU. Okay? You were talking about the school feeding program, right? The meat is being taken out. Next thing now, the beans will be taken out. All you're going to be getting is the rice. Okay? And we know how they when they're importing rice flour and sugar here, they're struggling. So maybe we may not even be able to get the rice very soon. Right?
I'm hoping that anybody has gotten that right.
Yeah, and these are not jokes. These are things that. So when people want to say, "Well, CIP doesn't interfere with me," these are resources that should be diverted to the country to fix up things, and instead are being diverted and put in the hands of a third party that we don't know how. We know that the lawyer for Galaxy is whom? That is Antoine. Who got the contracts? And who is going to get the contracts? What work are they going to do? Nobody knows. It cannot be a citizen of this country and for these kinds of things to be taking place. And when you ask a basic question, why? Who is doing all of this? That you cannot answer them? So the CIP has gotten worse. Sadly, I think that the worst has yet to come. Because if in fact that there are further indictments that take place, and if there's further evidence that comes out that indicts our officers, and given the attitude of our Prime Minister to say, not my fault, I don't know what's going on, right? This is the same thing he says about everything in this country. And that's why I said to Nancy earlier, if a Prime Minister tells you every time you ask him a question, I don't know, okay? Then it means that he's not capable of doing the job. He lied to us and told us he was the most prepared. Now, if he does know and he's lying to us, okay? He's not prepared, right? And then worse yet, if he knows what's going on, has lied to us, and that there's some level of illegality coming on, it's even more egregious. And you said it, we've been left to speculate that there is a lot of, I think, in the local parlance, that is taking place. And it is for the government to give us the information so that we don't think that. Where is the money? Where are the funds? Where have they gone to?
We are fast coming to an end of the program, but Senator Fedee, I would just like you to chime in before we end on this.
A quick one. What struck me is that, before the press conference on Tuesday, the Prime Minister and the Minister of CIP were saying to us, there are some contracts that we cannot get out of. Now, all of a sudden, there's a lawsuit and they're saying we will sign. So, but
the point is, they said they will, but they have not signed.
they have not signed. They've dealt with this so badly. Like everything else, we had to find out from the Galaxy press release that they are the ones with the infrastructure program. The Prime Minister has not answered any of the fundamental questions about Galaxy, how many passports they are, whether the voice recording from the CEO is actually true. He has not answered how many files Galaxy were allowed to sell, because the minister said that the Galaxy Hotel was oversubscribed or fully subscribed. How many files are there? What struck me though most potently is when the lawsuit claims that in the recording the CEO says that the minister is in complete control of the CIP. He calls all of the shots. So basically, the CEO explained himself as just being a rubber stamp. And Ernest Hilaire, according to the details of the lawsuit, is the man who controls every single aspect of the CIP. So if there's someone who should be losing their job, and if this is true, the person should really be the minister, because he is the one. According to the lawsuit, again, we cannot tell you whether the claims are true, but according to the lawsuit, Ernest is calling all of the shots. Ernest has been very quiet. He's very verbose and loquacious, and I want to use this opportunity, Spider, to tell him to come out and explain to the people, give the frank and full disclosure. What do you have to hide? Why haven't we heard from you? Last we heard that you were in Jordan. Now, being overseas these days doesn't mean that you can't make a statement in the national interest. This is a public national shame. Our reputation is down the tubes with international friends. Our reputation with agents in the marketplace. It is a complete mess.
I mean, if nothing else, up to this juncture here, they have brought the program into disrepute.
Yes, they have.
And have brought disgrace to this country. So that is a very serious situation. But in the interest of time, Nancy, I'd just like you to just quickly, and that will be a wrap-up statement as well.
My wrap-up statement. Well, I would like to do my wrap-up statement in Creole again,
Okay, right.
at least to reach out to our Creole audience, so everybody can understand the implications of this. So, cette lissisano vledi, passeport nous, il pas de bon place à chômage. Parce que nous avons parlé about CIP ça en chai et différents bails qui ont venu dans CIP. Mais actuellement ça nous a transpired c'est that qui CEO CIP c'est ici, monsieur Macron Emmanuel. L'année qui a mené en audience en Amérique et puis il a mené monsieur Macron Emmanuel qui c'est CEO CIP c'est ici. Yo l'homme non est dans casa en Amérique. Well, yo pas de l'audience puisque moun lan qui porte peut-être toutes ces moun ça, il porte peut-être ti wè moun premier ministre et moun qui était premier ministre ancien kids, il porte peut-être yo puisque il dit yo ka oppowe scheme CIP a dans manière qui pas légal. Ça il dit si on est pour vendre un passeport pour $100,000, yo ka vendre pour $60,000 et puis ça pas légal. Et puis il dit même bagaille ça la qu'a fait cette ici aussi. Bon changer Spider, monsieur ça a été venu dans les news et puis t'es envoyé en invitation by premier ministre et puis il t'a dit il y a toute évidence là et qu'il l'Amérique et qu'il a une invitation pour venir l'Amérique venir qui ça ni avant il y a l'audience ou ça. Ou ça qui ça premier ministre l'a fait. Il y a un parlement et qui crie nom là en bobolis, il dit nom là sans fraude, il pas écouter. Mais actuellement, comme nom là pour les compte, tous ces gens qui et puis Macron Emmanuel dans cette liste, nous sommes premier ministre la cachette dans différents chantiers. Ça nous a dit nous cette liste qui même Galaxy Company ça, yo ba yo un contrat avec kids pour faire en prison. Et puis en Saint-Kitts, il a collecté tout l'argent et prison pour fait. En cette liste, Galaxy a fait un hôtel. L'hôtel a pas fini. Et il a collecté tout l'argent. Et puis, le gouvernement cette liste a fait un projet neuf. Projet neuf là, il a un infrastructure programme. Puis il fait chimie, peut-être puis il ranger l'hôpital, puis il fait housing. Et bien, toutes ces bails ça, nous pas qui ça y est. Nous pas combien il a écouté, mais celle ça nous savent même galaxie ça qui a Saint Kitts qui pose ça fini prison. Même galaxie ça qui a fait un hôtel c'est ici. Yo a fait un Mikula et qui poko ça fini. Pour qui ça gouvernement ka bay même compagnie ça un lot contract pour yo faire infrastructure project. Nous pas ça comme l'argent, nous pas ça qui laisse projet qui est, ko l'argent ka aller, qui laisse ramasser l'argent, qui laisse presser contracteur. Nous pas connaître rien. Gouvernement pas qu'à dire rien, premier ministre là pas qu'à dire rien, et c'est non nous, passeport nous et que l'argent nous qui ka rembaye ça. So là na bagay qui pas qu'à pour moi-même cadeau ou acheter John Tia qui te dit about Bobolis là, Bobolis ça qui vient plus long spider. Là ni trop bagay moun pas comprendre, trop bagay gouvernement pas qu'à répondre et puis nous ka dit il est pour premier ministre et pour honnêteté il est vini et 17 lycéens qui ça qui ka aller about l'argent ça because potential là ça c'est yo bill yo dollar spider ça c'est cher l'argent. So nous voulons ça qu'on l'argent ça ka aller qui ça ka fait avec l'argent ça.
Ok, merci Nancy pour l'explication ça. Pour m'en expliquer ça. On a assuré c'est un créole noir qui comprend toute la première situation nous. Political leader of the opposition, I would like to give you just 2 minutes to just wrap up.
I want to say to Solutions that our interest in this is really the money. And what the money could be used for and what it should be used for. We have disagreed with the government's policy towards handling the inflation. In allowing the price of gas to go up, allowing the price of cooking gas to go up, it has affected the standard of living in this country significantly. Because as a result of it, bus fares have gone up. As a result of it, the price of bread has gone up. As a result of it, and the tax, the 2.5% levy that they've put on, the markup that businesses have had to put on their businesses and it's caused prices to go up significantly. This money could have gone a long ways in preventing the government of having to have increased the price of gas. Okay, they could have continued to subsidize the price of gas. They could have continued to subsidize the price of cooking gas. They could have subsidized some of the core inputs that would have protected the people, particularly the poorest of the poor, and they could have protected the businesses who now instead are having to let people go and they're seeing that their businesses are dropping because the cost of doing business has gone up in this country. That is our concern. And the government wants to deny what they're doing. $300 million is going to a Trinidadian firm to build the halls of justice. And that's money that could have gone to the NIC and would have benefited the pensioners, over $150 million in interest that would have benefited the pensioners of this country. We're seeing that GPH, $440 million US dollars is taken out of SLASPA and out of the hands of the people of St. Lucia and being put into the hands of another company, and we don't know how they're spending the money. They're certainly not spending the money on helping the people of St. Lucia. We don't even know who the contractors are going to be. We've seen that CIP, $1 billion US dollars, is now being deflected and diverted. Instead of going into the CIP board and into our economic fund, the money now is being given to Galaxy. No legislation has been passed. To Nancy's point, there's no level of accountability what's taking place. But $1 billion US dollars, $2.7 billion EC has been diverted. So we've seen $2.7 billion on CIP, $1 billion EC going from GPH, $300 million into the hospital, the halls of justice, $265 million in St. Jude's, and $80 million going into NLE. Right? I know for the average solution, these numbers are unbelievable. Nobody can believe that anybody can do this. Nobody's expecting that a country, the government should be able to do these things. But how is it affecting us is because the quality of our education is being affected, because to pay for all of this, the government is taxing the people. Who's paying the rent for the halls of justice? Who's going to pay back the loan to the Saudi Arabians? Okay? Who's going to make up? Because SLASPA now is going to have to let people go. Where's that money going? Where's the CIP money going? Is it even coming to St. Lucia? So even if we were to get back into government, how do we as a government hold a third-party person that has no real assets in St. Lucia accountable? And so I want people in this country to know that the United Workers' Party is very concerned. And we see how it's affecting the average person, persons in my constituency, who are suffering because there's no development taking place in the South. Taxes are becoming overburdened. The agricultural sector has been decimated. And we will fight. But I want all of us to know that these are things that we cannot fight alone. It is our democracy that is being destroyed. And when the institutions that are there to protect us, they're not protecting us, we the people have to hold them more accountable. Sitting here saying that you're going to wait for the next election to solve the problem is not solving the problem. What is taking place is egregious, that your future is being raped. That's what's happening. Our future is being mortgaged to the hilt. There will be nothing left for us. And it's very easy for other countries to say, no visas, no banking. Where are we going to go? Where are we going to go? And that is what is at stake. And I'm appealing to all solutions. We're having a series of town hall meetings. Come. If you cannot come, turn on and listen. And the day is going to come very soon that we're going to have to demonstrate once more to this government that we are not going to take this anymore, and that we're going to stand up for our rights, we're going to stand up for our freedoms, and those things mean something to us. And it's only if you express it, because we're providing the information here for you to see what is taking place. Why are they doing it? They cannot answer. Who's benefiting? We can only speculate on who is benefiting. But we certainly know it's not you. It's not the people of this country. So we have a lot of work to do. And I want everyone to know that we have not lost focus ultimately as to what all these things mean. They are egregious, but what is more outrageous is what they're doing to cause the people of this country to suffer.
Dominic, we are out of time already, but I will give you a minute to just quickly...
Just to say thank you, and thanks to Nancy and the political leader for the discussion. I want to say to the people of St. Lucia, scandal after scandal, bad deals after bad deals. We have a period of low economic growth, high inflation, high unemployment, high levels of debt. Our country is in crisis. All of what I've just said has just made Philip J. Pierre the worst Prime Minister our country has had in its history. We cannot continue on the path that we're on. Thank you.
So, gentlemen, I do not want to add too much to this in light of the fact that we are out of time, but just to say that what we are hearing here is really a frightening situation that does not augur well for the future of this country, and it is incumbent upon all St. Lucians to wake up to the reality that we are facing and the fact that our future is heading in a bad direction, in the wrong direction, and if we do not take a stand now, that will become irretrievable. So please, we are asking you to pay attention to what is going on and take a stand. Very soon we'll be calling upon you if the government in quick time does not show that they are going to turn around from the direction in which they are going, and we are going to take a stand and protest to let it be known that enough is enough and what is happening now is unacceptable. I want to inform you before we end that on Sunday, the United Workers' Party will be hosting a town hall meeting in Grand Riviere from 4 p.m. We are asking people from the area to attend, and the rest of you can join us live online and follow that meeting where many of those subjects will be further ventilated, and we'll elaborate a lot more on what is transpiring, what is taking place in your country. We have a corrupt government governing our country. We cannot allow the reputation, the image, and the future of our country to go down the drain in this manner by the worst Prime Minister and the most corrupt cabinet that we have ever come across. We cannot continue that slime. like I said, stop it before it's too late. I want to thank my panelists, Mrs. Nancy Chance, the Mobilization Officer of the United Workers' Party, the political leader of the opposition, and Member of Parliament from Miku South, Honorable Alan Chastanet, and the Deputy Political Leader of the United Workers' Party, Senator Dominic Fedee. I want to thank our technical personnel, and I want to thank especially all of you, viewers and listeners, to the round table. I invite you to join us again next week when we will continue enlightening you about what is taking place in this country that is of concern and interest to you. I thank you and have a good night.